Hey guys, it's Ann Yorks from the Flower Box, and today I have a cookie tutorial just in time for Father's Day. We're going to be making some tulle cookies to celebrate our dads, and to go with this tutorial, we have a really fun cookie decorating kit full of the essential stencils and cutters you need to make these cookies. You can check it out on flowerbox.com. Today we're going to be making a hammer, a wrench, pliers, a really cute power drill, and a piece of wood that says Happy Father's Day. So let's cookie it up. Let's start off with this pair of pliers. Now, because I am entering my summer decorating mode, I'm trying to keep these cookies and details a little bit on the simple side to maximize my summertime fun. So we're just using some outlines using tip number 2, and then we're going to be flooding in with our tipless bag using 10-second flooding icing. So I'm just setting off these icing areas using the royal blue and the gray icing to get ready to flood. Then there's going to be minimum details. Oops! If you get a little shift in your icing, just use your scribe tool to pick that up and off the cookie, and you can repipe. Mistakes happen and they're easy to fix. So we're just going to finish with outlining this set of pliers, and then we're ready to flood in. Now, if you're wondering how I got this beautiful gray icing color, I took a bowl of white icing and I added a teaspoon of black icing, not black food color, but black icing, to get a really nice gray color that looks like the metal on these tools. And I do also add white food coloring to the icing as well to keep those colors looking nice and solid. So as you can see, I'm flooding in these icing areas, and I like to flood in alternating icing areas. This helps prevent not only color bleeding, but it creates a really beautiful, natural definition line between those icing areas. So I started with the side of the pliers that's in the background, and now I'm flooding in the side of the pliers that's in the foreground. This just adds a little bit of depth to that cookie design without a lot of extra work. I like to dry my cookies in front of a fan for about an hour before I flood in those other icing areas. Now I'm just going to add the screw with my flood icing, and this cookie's done. Time to move on to the wrench. I'm going to outline the wrench using my gray icing, and again, I have a tip number 2 on my piping icing bag. Now I'm ready to flood in. I love this cookie because it is a breath of fresh air. It just has a couple steps and this cookie is done and looking cute. I love to have a mix of easy cookies and a cookie that has a few extra steps, like the power drill that I'm going to show you in just a bit. Notice how generous I am with my flooding icing. I love to fully flood the cookie so it has a nice full look once the icing is dry. Now, using my tip number 2 on my icing bag, I'm going to add a few pipe details, and this cookie is done and looking super cute. If you have any little line breaks in your icing, if that bothers you, you can just smooth those out using the tip of your scribe. Let's take a look at the power drill. This is my favorite cookie from this set. I think we're always used to seeing hearts and Christmas trees as cookies, but I always think it's funny when a non-traditional shape like a power drill is turned into a cookie. It's just amusing. So we're gonna start off by outlining all the different icing areas, and I'm using my yellow, my black, and my gray icing, and all of my icing bags have tip number 2 on them. I'm just planning out the design and getting all the areas outlined. We're going to be doing a little bit of multicolor flooding in the main body of the power drill. So you can see I've broken that outline into a black area and a yellow area. And this is just gonna really help me guide my flooding. So now I have my black flood icing, and I'm just flooding that bottom of the main body black. And I used that black outline as a guide to where I want to start and stop that flood icing. And now while that's still wet, I'm going to go back in with my yellow and flood in the rest of the power drill. Using highly contrasting icing colors like yellow and black definitely has the potential for color bleeding. And so I'm going to add one more piped flood line over the seam to clean up that area and really prevent any color bleeding from becoming apparent. Now I'm just going to flood in the tip of the drill, and I'm ready to let that cookie dry. Once those icing areas have an hour to dry in front of the fan, I'm going to go back in with my flood icing and fill in the rest of the cookie. Now, because the flooding phase took a couple of extra steps just to set up all these really cute icing areas, I'm going to keep the details pretty simple just to keep my decorating time at a minimum. I've added a few piped lines on the drill bit and on the main body of the drill, and I'm also going to add a trigger. Now I'm almost done with this cookie. Again, I still have tip number 2 on my icing bag with the yellow icing, and I'm just going to pipe some lines in the back for details on the drill. I love adding pipe details to my cookies because it helps keep the packaging from sitting up and off the flat base icing layer. Okay, let's make this hammer. I love the shape of this cookie cutter. It's just kind of chubby and fun, and it just makes a really whimsical hammer cookie. I'm going to get these areas outlined, and because I want the thin section on the hammer head, I don't actually follow the outline of the cookie in that area. I bring my outlines in just to add a little bit of an interesting look to this hammer. I let the top dry, and now I'm ready to flood in the yellow icing. To add a little dimension to the hammerhead, I'm going to pipe a line just to give a little detail there. And then I'm going to add some details to the handle. I did want to keep these details nice and thin, so I actually sized my tip down to tip 1.5, and this just allows some thinner piped lines as I work my way down the handle. Almost done. Just want to personalize this one for all the dads. Our final cookie that we're going to decorate is a wood plank, and this wood plank says Happy Father's Day. Using light brown icing, I'm just going to outline this wood plank, and I want to add some jaggedy edges to make it look like the edge of a piece of wood. So I'm just adding some guide dots to kind of create sort of a plank look. It's a little bit whimsical, and there's no really wrong way to do this. I'm just kind of wiggling and squiggling my way down to outline this cookie. Now it's time to flood in the cookie, and because we're going to be stenciling this cookie, it is really important to be very generous with the flood. So I want to make sure that I don't have any little dips or hills and valleys in the surface of the icing, and I can really prevent that by generously flooding it in. Once this cookie is dry, we're ready to get the wood grain stencil in place. I have my stencil genie and my stencil clicked into place, and I have harvest brown with a little bit of white airbrush color in my airbrush gun. I'm gonna lightly airbrush that background. I don't want that wood grain to be too overwhelming that it would make it difficult to read the Happy Father's Day stencil. So I'm using light air pressure as I quickly add this wood grain to the background. Using a stencil is such a great way to add wood grain to a cookie because it's such a detailed pattern that applies pretty quickly. Now before I stencil Happy Father's Day, I want to add a little depth to this cookie. So I'm going to go around and just add an airbrushed highlight to the edges. Again, I'm using light pressure on my trigger, and you can see I'm just building the color as I move my way around the cookie. To get ready to stencil, I generously load up my scraper with royal blue icing. I get my stencil in place and I use my anchor finger to hold that stencil where it needs to be, and then I spread the icing gently over the surface of the stencil. Before I lift up, I remove the excess, and then I peel back that stencil just like I would peel up a sticker. It reveals that awesome Happy Father's Day. It just looks so cool, and it was so quick to add it to the cookie. Now I'm almost done. I just want to add some gray accents for nails on the corners of the cookie, and this cookie is ready to go with our set. Thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make tool cookies for Father's Day. If you want to recreate these cookies, definitely check out the blog post for extra bonus tips on icing colors, and you'll also find the Father's Day toolkit there as well with the essential cutters and stencils. I would be so flattered if you recreated these cookies, so if you do, definitely tag at the Flower Box Shop on Instagram and Facebook so I can see what you make. And as always, happy decorating!